The hospital monitors beeped steadily above my head. A rhythm that should have been comforting but wasn't. I'd just woken from emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix, my abdomen stitched and throbbing. The anesthesia still fogged my brain as I blinked at the fluorescent lights. Colin stood beside my bed, but he wasn't holding my hand or asking how I felt. His arms were crossed tight against his chest, his jaw set in that familiar expression of disappointment. He dropped a manila envelope onto the tray table with a slap that made me flinch. "I've filed the papers," he said flatly. "I'm done living off scraps." My throat felt desert dry. "Scraps?" I managed to whisper. He scoffed, shaking his head like I was the stupidest person alive. "You'll never make enough to matter, Isla. I need a real partner." Then he walked out. Just like that. Before I could tell him the truth, that I already earned $130,000 a year. After he left, I stared at the envelope for what felt like hours. My heart monitor started racing, beeping faster and faster until a nurse rushed in. Her name tag read Tessa, and her face showed genuine concern as she checked my vitals. "Your blood pressure is spiking," she said softly, adjusting my four. What happened? I couldn't form words. How could I explain that my husband had just divorced me while I lay in a hospital bed, recovering from surgery that could have killed me? Tessa glanced at the envelope, then back at me. Her eyes held understanding. "Honey," she whispered, squeezing my hand gently, "you're better off without him." Those words broke something inside me. Tears streamed down my face as the reality sank in. Colin thought I was worthless, that I contributed nothing. He had no idea about my remote design firm, the contracts I'd secured, the clients who paid premium rates for my work. I'd kept it quiet, thinking it didn't matter. Now I realized my silence had been my biggest mistake. 3 days passed before I could reach my hidden laptop. Colin had always mocked my little hobby, so I'd stopped mentioning it. But as I powered on the device, spreadsheets and contracts filled the screen, proof of everything he'd dismissed. My company, which I'd carefully built over 4 years, generated 6 figures annually. I was the founder, the creative director, the person clients specifically requested. My business partner, Marcus, had been messaging frantically. I scrolled through his texts, each one more urgent than the last. The final message made my breath catch. "Isla, where are you? We just landed the London deal. $40,000 deposit incoming. They want to start immediately. $40,000. For one project." Colin thought I made scraps. He thought I'd never matter. My hands trembled as I typed back a response, telling Marcus about the surgery, promising I'd be back online within the week. Then I looked at those divorce papers again. Maybe this wasn't the disaster I'd thought it was. Colin returned on my discharge day, breezing into the room like he owned the place. "Sign these before you leave," he demanded, tossing a pen onto my lap. "Let's get this over with clean." I was still weak, still hurting, but something had shifted inside me. I picked up the papers and read them carefully. He'd filed for a simple division of assets, our shared apartment, our joint account with its meager $3,000, our ancient car. Nothing about my business because he didn't know it existed. I signed, but not before making one crucial change on my copy. I added an addendum protecting all income from sources predating our marriage and all business assets in my sole name. Colin didn't notice. He never read things carefully, always too impatient, too sure of himself. "Finally," he muttered, snatching his copy. As he turned to leave, his phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a photo, him wrapped around a brunette I'd never seen before. Our eyes met. He saw that I'd seen. He didn't apologize. He just walked out faster. Going home was harder than I'd expected. The apartment looked different, felt emptier. Colin had taken his clothes, his gaming equipment, his collection of vintage records he'd valued more than our marriage. But something else was different. I stood at the door, key in hand, and it wouldn't turn. My pulse quickened. Had he changed the locks? Was I locked out of my own home? Then I remembered. I'd changed them. 3 months ago, after finding suspicious charges on our joint credit card, I'd quietly replaced the locks and never given Colin the new key. Because this apartment wasn't ours. It was mine. I'd purchased it 2 years before we married, kept it in my name, let him believe we rented together. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared in the hallway carrying groceries. She hesitated, then approached. Isla, honey, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice low. She handed me a folded note. He moved another woman in the same day you went to surgery. I thought you should know. My follow-up appointment came a week later. Tessa, the nurse from the hospital, was there by chance, covering for a colleague. When she saw me, her face brightened. Isla, how are you healing? We talked while she checked my incision. I found myself opening up about Colin, about the divorce, about everything I'd been holding inside. That's when Tessa said something that changed everything. Wait, you're that Isla? Isla Ward? From Ward's studio. I blinked. How do you know? I'm a freelance designer, she interrupted, her excitement growing. I've followed your work for 2 years. Your branding concepts are incredible. I had no idea you were the woman whose husband. She trailed off, embarrassed. But an idea was forming between us. What if you rebranded? Tessa suggested. Show your face. Use your real name instead of hiding behind Ward Studio LLC. Let people see the person behind the work. My stomach twisted with fear and possibility. That's terrifying. That's exactly why you should do it, she said firmly. Let's make them see who you really are. I rebranded everything within 2 weeks. New website with my photo front and center. New social media accounts using my real name. I even posted a simple statement. Ward Studio is me, Isla Ward. I've been hiding, but not anymore. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages flooded in from clients, fellow designers, even people who'd simply been moved by my honesty. My client list doubled within days. People connected with my authenticity, with my story of betrayal and rebuilding. Then came the DM that made my blood run cold. It was from someone named Brielle Patterson. Hi, Isla. I think I made a terrible mistake. Can we talk? It's about Colin. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. This was Colin's new girlfriend, the woman he'd moved in while I lay in a hospital bed. Why would she want to talk to me? Curiosity 1. Coffee shop on Maple Street. Tomorrow at 2. Her reply came instantly. Thank you. You deserve to know the truth. Brielle was younger than I'd expected, maybe 25, with nervous hands that wouldn't stop fidgeting with her coffee cup. I didn't know, she started immediately. About the surgery, about the hospital, about any of it. He told me you'd been separated for months, that you were lazy and manipulative and, she broke off, tears welling in her eyes. I waited, my own coffee untouched. He's been draining my savings, she continued. I thought we were building a life together, but he's just using me like he probably used you. The anger I'd expected to feel never came. Instead, I felt something like pity. Colin had a pattern, and we were both victims of it. There's something else, Brielle said, her voice dropping to a whisper. His lawyer is planning to sue you. For concealed income during the marriage. He found out about your business somehow. My blood went cold. When? Next week. He's claiming you hid money, that you owe him half of everything you've made. I set down my cup carefully, surprised to find myself smiling. Let him try. My lawyer, Elliot Vance, was exactly the kind of person you wanted on your side. Sharp, thorough, and quietly confident. He reviewed the divorce papers Colin had rushed me to sign, the ones with my added addendum protecting my business assets. Then he smiled. It was the kind of smile that meant someone else was about to have a very bad day. Ms. Ward, when your ex-husband signed these papers, he waived all claims to any assets or income sources you owned independently. He literally signed away his right to sue you. Relief flooded through me. So we're safe. Completely. But here's the interesting part. I did some digging into his financial history. The spending patterns, the gambling debts, the credit card charges at hotels while you were married. Elliot slid a folder across his desk. If he wants to go to court, we'll be ready. The phone rang before I could respond. Elliot answered, listened, then his smile widened. That was his lawyer. They want to see us in court next Tuesday. He looked at me. Ready to end this? I thought of everything Colin had put me through. Absolutely. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. More intimate. Colin sat across the aisle with his lawyer, refusing to make eye contact. He looked different. Thinner, older somehow, like stress had aged him in the week since I'd last seen him. His lawyer spoke first, painting me as a deceitful wife who'd hidden substantial income throughout our marriage. They presented bank statements from my business account, evidence of my earnings, making it sound like I'd been stealing from Colin all along. Then it was our turn. Elliot calmly produced my business registration, dated 2 years before my marriage to Colin. He showed contracts, invoices, proof that every dollar I'd earned came from work I'd done independently. "Now, Your Honor, let's discuss Mr. Ward's spending during the marriage," Elliot continued. The evidence was damning. Gambling losses totaling nearly $30,000. Hotel charges while I was supposedly at home. Charges at jewelry stores for items I'd never received. The judge's expression hardened with each revelation. Finally she spoke. "I've heard enough." She slammed her gavel. Divorce finalized. Ms. Ward keeps all independent assets and business income. Mr. Ward's claim is dismissed. Colin's face went white. Within a month, Colin's life crumbled spectacularly. His credit score tanked from the gambling debts he could no longer hide. Brielle left him, taking the security deposit from the apartment he'd moved her into. Then he lost his job at the marketing firm, not because of the divorce, but because of his behavior afterward. He'd shown up outside my apartment one night, drunk and shouting apologies. My neighbor Mrs. Patterson filmed the entire scene from her window. Someone posted it online, and it went viral. Not the sympathetic kind of viral, but the cautionary tale kind. "Local man has public meltdown after failed court case," read one headline. Another said, "Entitled ex-husband gets reality check." The video showed Colin stumbling, crying, begging me to open the door while I stayed safely inside, following Elliot's advice to never engage. His employer saw the video. They saw him drunk, unstable, harassing his ex-wife. The termination letter cited, "behavior inconsistent with company values." I didn't celebrate his misfortune. But I didn't cry for him either. He'd made his choices. Now he was living with the consequences. Meanwhile, Ward's studio exploded in ways I'd never imagined. My honesty about rebuilding after betrayal resonated with thousands of people. Clients came not just for my design work but for what I represented: resilience, independence, refusal to be defined by someone else's judgment. Then came the email that changed everything. A journalist from the City Chronicle wanted to interview me for a feature titled, "The Woman Who Built Herself." I stared at that subject line for hours. Public exposure meant vulnerability. It meant Colin would see it, might come back angrier and more desperate. It meant putting my face and story out for everyone to judge. Tessa called that evening, somehow sensing I needed advice. "Are you going to do it?" she asked after I explained. "I don't know. What if it makes things worse? What if what if it helps someone else?" she interrupted gently. "What if your story gives another woman the courage to leave? To build? To realize she's worth more?" That question sat heavy in my chest. The next morning, I emailed the journalist back. "Yes. Let's talk." The interview aired on a Thursday morning. I sat in the studio, makeup carefully applied, trying to control my nervous breathing. The journalist, a woman named Patricia Holmes, had kind eyes that helped me relax. "Tell me about the moment everything changed," she prompted. So I did. I talked about waking up from surgery to divorce papers. About discovering my own worth. About building a business while hiding it from someone who should have celebrated it. I never said Colin's name. I didn't have to. The story was bigger than him. It was about self-worth, about refusing to shrink yourself to fit someone else's expectations, about the power of knowing your own value. When the segment ended, my phone exploded with messages. Clients, friends, strangers, all reaching out with support and their own stories. Then Brielle's message appeared. "He just watched your interview. He's furious. He says you embarrassed him in front of everyone." I typed back carefully. "Good. Let him feel what he taught me." It felt like closure. Like the final word in a conversation that had lasted too long. 2 weeks later, a handwritten letter arrived at my studio. The envelope was crisp, expensive paper, addressed in Colin's familiar scrawl. I almost threw it away unopened. Instead, I made coffee, sat at my desk and read. "Isla," it began, "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I'm asking anyway. Please meet me. Just once. Just so I can say what I should have said in that hospital room. The letter continued for 2 pages, detailing his regrets, his realizations, his losses. He'd hit bottom, he claimed. Lost everything. Understood now what he'd destroyed. I don't expect forgiveness, he wrote. I just need you to hear me apologize properly. Not through lawyers or letters, but face to face. I set the letter down, hands shaking. Every instinct screamed to ignore it, to let him drown in his own consequences. But another part of me, the part that still remembered why I'd married him once, wanted closure. Real closure. I picked up my phone and typed, 1 meeting. Public place. Next Tuesday at 6. Marino's restaurant on 5th. His reply was immediate. Thank you. I'll be there. Marino's was crowded when I arrived, which felt safer than an empty restaurant. Colin was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking diminished in his wrinkled shirt and unshaven face. He'd lost weight. His eyes had dark circles underneath, like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. Thank you for coming, he said as I sat down. His voice barely above a whisper. I didn't respond, just waited. He deserved to fill the silence. I didn't know, he finally said. About the money, about how successful you were. I thought you were dependent on me, that I was carrying us both financially. You never asked, I replied evenly. You never asked what I did, how my work was going, whether I was happy. You just assumed. He flinched like I'd slapped him. You're right. I was so wrapped up in my own pride, my own insecurities, that I never saw you. The real you. A man at the next table had his phone out, angled toward us. I didn't care. Let people see this. Let them see what accountability looked like, even if it came too late. I forgive you, I said and watched his eyes fill with hope. But I forgive you for me, not for you. So I can move on without carrying your weight. The hope in his eyes dimmed. I understand, he whispered. The video from Marino's went viral within hours. Someone had recorded my speech, the part about forgiving him for myself, about refusing to carry his weight, and it resonated with millions. Comments flooded in from people who'd experienced similar betrayals, who needed to hear that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Invitations started arriving. Women's conferences wanted me to speak. Business groups wanted to hear about building success while overcoming personal obstacles. A university asked me to talk to their entrepreneurship students about resilience. Then came the billboard. I was driving to meet a client when I saw it. My face, 20 feet tall on the side of a building, under the slogan built, not broken. It was part of a campaign the City Chronicle had launched featuring local success stories. My story. My face. My truth. I pulled over, staring up at that image. It felt surreal, terrifying, and empowering all at once. My phone buzzed with a message from Colin. I saw the billboard. I was wrong about everything. Can we start over? I'm getting help, real help. Maybe we could. I didn't finish reading it. Some doors needed to stay closed. But doubt crept in anyway. Late at night, alone in my apartment, I'd remember the good times with Colin. The way he used to make me laugh before the resentment set in. The dreams we'd shared before reality disappointed him. Tessa noticed during one of our now regular coffee meetings. You're thinking about him again, she said, not a question but a statement. He's changing. Therapy, sobriety meetings, accountability groups. What if? What if what? Tessa interrupted gently. What if this time is different? What if he really means it? I nodded miserably. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Isla, people can change. But you don't have to be there while they do it. You don't owe him your presence during his redemption arc. Her words settled something inside me. I pulled out my phone, found Colin's last message, and made a decision. I didn't respond to his plea to start over. Instead, I transferred $5,000 to his account, the exact amount of debt he'd claimed I owed him during the court case. I attached a note. Foreclosure. Use it to actually change. But do it without me. Then I blocked his number. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. I was choosing me. Ward Studio's success attracted attention. Not all of it positive. A competing design firm, Apex Creative, started a whisper campaign about me. They claimed I was exploiting trauma for profit, that my rebranding was manipulative, that I wasn't a real designer but just someone who'd gotten lucky with a sob story. At first, I ignored it. Professionals don't respond to gossip. But then the whispers grew louder. Anonymous reviews appeared on design forums, questioning my ethics. Clients started asking careful questions about my business practices. Then Apex Creative released private messages, conversations supposedly between me and Colin where I discussed using the divorce for marketing. Except I'd never written those messages. They were fabricated, cobbled together from public interviews and altered to look damning. My inbox filled with hate. Industry contacts stopped returning my calls. A major client, a tech startup preparing to launch, withdrew their contract worth $15,000. They sent a terse email, "We've decided to go in a different direction due to recent ethical concerns." I sat at my desk, watching my carefully built world crack apart, and didn't know how to stop it. That's when my phone rang. It was Colin. "I didn't leak anything," Colin said immediately when I answered. "I swear on everything, Isla. I didn't give anyone those messages." "How do you even know about? It's everywhere. I saw what they're doing to you." His voice held genuine distress. "But those messages are fake. I never wrote them, and I know you didn't either." I wanted to hang up. I'd blocked him for a reason, yet somehow he'd gotten through. But desperation made me listen. "Can you prove they're fake?" "Maybe. I still have my old phone. All our real text conversations. If we compare timestamps, metadata, we can show those messages were manufactured." Hope sparked against my better judgment. "Why would you help me?" The line went quiet for a long moment. "Because this isn't about us anymore. This is about someone trying to destroy what you built. That's not okay, even if I'm the one who destroyed us first." Tessa arrived at my studio an hour later. I'd called her immediately after Colin hung up, needing someone I trusted present. "We need to find who leaked this," she said, opening her laptop. What we discovered was worse than I'd imagined. The leak came from inside Ward's studio. My assistant, a woman named Cassidy I'd hired 3 months ago, had been feeding information to Apex Creative. Email evidence showed they'd paid her $5,000 for inside access. I fired Cassidy quietly the next morning. No dramatics, no confrontation. Just a calm termination meeting with documentation of her breach of contract. She didn't deny it, just gathered her things and left. But the damage was spreading. More hate messages arrived. More clients withdrew. I was watching my business collapse in slow motion, and I couldn't stop it. Then the truth leaked anyway, but not from me. One of Cassidy's friends, guilty about what had happened, posted everything on social media. The bribes from Apex Creative, the fabricated messages, the coordinated campaign to destroy my reputation. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Other designers came forward with their own stories of Apex Creative's unethical tactics. Industry forums that had questioned my ethics now rallied to my defense. The fabricated messages were torn apart by digital forensic experts who volunteered their time to prove the fraud. Within 72 hours, Apex Creative faced a full-scale backlash. Clients withdrew. Their social media accounts were flooded with criticism. 3 of their senior designers quit publicly, citing toxic leadership. The company that had tried to destroy me was instead destroying itself. And through it all, Colin quietly worked behind the scenes, sharing evidence, defending my name in online forums, doing everything he could to help without asking for recognition. Colin called a week later. The main blogger who was pushing the fake story just issued an apology. Apex Creative is finished. They're shutting down. I sat on my couch, phone pressed to my ear, processing this information. You did that. We did that. The evidence was solid. The truth was on your side. He paused. Isla, I know I can't undo what I did to you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness or another chance. But I can protect what you've built. That's something at least. His voice cracked slightly. It's the least I can do. Colin, I'm not asking for anything, he interrupted quickly. I just needed you to know I'm trying to be better. Not for us because there is no us. But for me. So I can live with myself. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my apartment, thinking about redemption. About whether people truly changed or just got better at hiding who they'd always been. About whether Colin's help meant anything beyond guilt and obligation. I didn't have answers. But I noticed something had shifted. The tight knot of anger in my chest had loosened slightly. Not forgiveness exactly, but maybe the beginning of peace. 6 months after the divorce, I opened my first art exhibit. It wasn't something I'd planned. Ward Studio was a design firm, not an art gallery. But during the chaos with Apex Creative, I'd started painting as therapy. Abstract pieces at first, just color and emotion. Then more deliberate work, pieces that told stories. The exhibit was titled, Reconstruction. Every piece represented a stage of rebuilding, the hospital bed, the divorce papers, the moment of realization, the climb back to self-worth. I invited Colin, surprising even myself. You don't have to come, I told him over the phone. I just wanted you to know about it. It felt dishonest not to tell you. He arrived quietly on opening night, staying in the back of the gallery while critics and collectors moved through the space. I watched him pause at a large canvas, the centerpiece of the collection, a dark hospital room with a single figure, papers scattered like fallen leaves. He stood there for nearly 10 minutes, tears running down his face. I didn't approach him. Didn't comfort him. This wasn't about his feelings. It was about my truth. But when he whispered, "I'm sorry," to the painting, cameras flashed nearby. A journalist had captured the moment. Colin confronting the consequences of his actions in public, genuine remorse displayed for everyone to see. The exhibit drew national attention. Not because of the drama, but because of the message, that rebuilding after betrayal was possible, that self-worth could be reclaimed, that endings could become beginnings. During my closing speech, I thanked everyone who'd supported me. Then I did something unexpected. I want to thank someone who probably shouldn't be thanked, I said, but honesty matters more than comfort. I want to thank the man who left me in a hospital bed, who thought I was worthless, who forced me to see myself clearly for the first time in years. The room went silent. I could see Colin in the back, his face a mixture of shame and something else. Maybe gratitude that I'd acknowledged his role without destroying him. He taught me what I will never accept again, I continued. He taught me my own value by refusing to see it. And while I wouldn't wish that lesson on anyone, I'm grateful for who I've become because of it. The standing ovation that followed wasn't for Colin. It was for survival, for transformation, for every person who'd ever been dismissed and found a way to rebuild. Colin clapped from his corner, then quietly slipped out before anyone could approach him, leaving me free finally completely. The profits from the exhibit were substantial. Enough to fund something I'd been dreaming about for months. I established the Ward Foundation for Women Rebuilding After Divorce. It provided grants for education, business startups, and therapy for women leaving marriages where they'd been financially or emotionally diminished. Tessa became co-director, bringing her expertise in trauma support. We reviewed applications together, reading stories that mirrored my own. Women who'd been told they were worthless, who'd hidden their talents, who'd lost themselves in trying to be enough for someone else. 3 months after launch, an anonymous donation appeared in the foundation account. $20,000, with a note. For the second chance I didn't deserve. Keep building. See. I held that note for a long time, tears blurring the words. This wasn't about reconciliation or romance or finding our way back to each other. This was about Colin finally understanding what I'd tried to show him all along. That supporting someone's growth was more important than controlling their narrative. I wrote back, the only communication I'd initiated since blocking his number. Thank you. Use this as proof you can change. Show other men that redemption is possible. His response came hours later. I will. And I'll never bother you again. You deserve peace. This time, I believed him. 1 year after signing those divorce papers in a hospital bed, I stood on a conference stage addressing 300 women entrepreneurs. The speech was titled, Built, Not Broken, and every seat was filled. I told my story. All of it. The surgery, the betrayal, the hidden success, the public rebuilding. I talked about forgiveness as a tool for personal freedom, not reconciliation. About boundaries as self-respect, not selfishness. About the power of knowing your worth even when nobody else sees it. He left me in a hospital bed, I said, my voice steady and strong, thinking I was nothing, thinking I'd never matter. And I walked out of that hospital stronger than I'd ever been. Not because of him but in spite of him. Because I finally saw what he couldn't, that I'd been valuable all along. After the speech, a publisher approached with an offer for a memoir. The proposed title, Built, Not Broken, How I Found Myself After Being Left Behind. I looked out at the audience, at the women nodding and crying and taking notes. At Tessa in the front row, beaming with pride. At the life I'd constructed from the rubble of my marriage. And I smiled, whispering to myself what Colin would never hear. You tried to break me. Instead you freed me. And I will never be small again.